Oxford scholars translate ancient Sumerian Scribe and confirm the Annunaki and Nibiru. This predates the Bible. I'm going to do a live reading with you guys and discuss this translation. It is an excellent translation, in my opinion, from these Oxford scholars, various Oxford scholars. And I would like to go ahead right now and give a shout out, to the credits here. Right here, if you go to this specific website, you can look at the project members. You can read about the scholars, and you can even get into Sumerian / Anunnaki translations yourself. So if you want to verify the Zechariah Sitchin, if you want to verify, people that have written or talked about the Anunnaki, the Sumerians, this is a good start. Now, is anything 100% accurate? Not that I know of. Is it pretty darn accurate? Most likely. And here's what I find fascinating is I have been doing so much research into Nibiru, and I've been trying to find out how legit it is. And these Sumerian scribes that are ancient, they're well over 7,000 years old. So it predates what's in the Bible, predates the Gnostic texts, predates even the stuff that's in the Book of the Dead, if you believe the story about how these ancient hieroglyphics are only approximately 5,500 years old. So with that said, it's called Enkis' Journey to Nibiru, a.k.a. Nibiru. Enkis' Journey to Nibiru. Now, this is a different translation. I read another translation of Enkis' Journey to Nibiru a few weeks ago, and here's something that I missed, and this is a different translation. This is from Sumerian cuneiform tablets, and I'm going to go ahead and read this to you guys. I want to get your opinion on this specific. Okay, here we go. We got Cody on here again. Let's block this douchebag. Okay, here we go. See you later, dude. In those remote days, when the fates were determined, and a year went on, brought about abundance, and people broke through the earth like green plants. So, people broke through the earth like green plants. Then the Lord of the Abzu, which is like a location of holy water, which is considered extremely mystical and majestic and considered sacred. Nibiru is the only reference to a location that I have found that's considered higher than the Abzu thus far. So, being into the shrine of the Abzu, he brought joy. Now you know what the Abzu is. It's the location of holy water, the sanctuary. And, okay, so now we get into an artfully made bright crenellation rising out from the Abzu was erected for Lord Nudimmud. He built the temple from precious metal, decorated it with lapis lazuli, and covered it abundantly with gold. In Eridu, he built the house on the bank. Its brickwork makes utterances and gives advice. Its eaves roar like a bull. The temple of Enki bellows. During the night, the temple praises its Lord and offers its best for him. Now, before Lord Enki, Izamud, the minister, praises the temple. He goes to the temple and speaks to it. He goes to the brick building and addresses it. Temple, built from precious metal and lapis lazuli, whose foundation pegs are driven into the Abzur, which has been cared for by the prince in the Abzul. Like the Tigris and the Euphrates, it is mighty and awe-inspiring. Joy has been brought into Enkis' Abzu. Your lock has no rival. Your bolt is a fearsome lion. Your roof beams are the bull of heaven, and artfully made bright headgear. Your reed mats are like lapis lazuli, decorating the roof beams. Your vault is a bull raising its horns. Your door is a lion who is awe-inspiring. Your stairway is a lion coming down on a man. Abzu, pure place, which fulfills its purpose. And Gura, your Lord has directed its steps towards you. Where are we at here? Okay, here we go. Enki, Lord of the Abzu, has embellished your foundation pegs with cornelian. He has adorned you with lapis lazuli. The temple of Enki is provisioned the holy wax. It is a bull obedient to its master, roaring by itself and giving advice at the same time. Angura, which Enki has surrounded with a holy reed fence in your midst. A lofty throne is erected. Your door jamb is the holy locking bar of heaven. Abzu, pure place, place where the fates are determined. The Lord of wisdom, Lord Enki, the Lord who determines the fates. Nudimmud, the Lord of Eridu, lets nobody look into the mist. Your Abgal priests let their hair down. I'm getting a phone call. Your Abgal priests let their hair down their backs. Enki's beloved Eridu, Angura, whose inside is full of abundance. Abzu, life of the land, beloved of Enki, temple built on the edge, befitting the artful divine powers. Eridu, your shadow, extends over the midst of the sea, rising sea without a rival, mighty, awe-inspiring river which terrifies the land. Angura, high citadel, standing firm on the earth, temple at the edge of the Engur, a lion in the midst of the Abzu, lofty temple of Enki, which bestows wisdom on the land. Your cry, like that of a mighty risen river, reaches King Enki. He made the Alajar instrument. Now let me take a time out here. And how's the sound coming in? Is everything going in okay right now? I want to make sure that we're not having any technical issues. We doing good? Can somebody just give me a quick yes? We're on the... All right, well... Okay, thanks, guys. So, Enki's beloved... No, here we go. Abzu, pure place which fulfills its purpose. Angura, your Lord has directed his steps towards you. Enki, Lord of the Abzu, has embellished your foundation pegs with cornelian. He has adorned you with lapis lazuli. Abzu, pure place, place where the fates are determined. The Lord of wisdom, Lord Enki, the Lord who determines the fates. Nudimmud, the Lord of Eridu, lets nobody look into its mist. Your Abgal priests let their hair down their backs. So what is the midst? Why can't they look into the midst? What's the deal with that? Why is that off limits? Enki's beloved Eridu, Angura, whose inside is full of abundance. Abzu, life of the land, beloved of Enki, temple built on the edge, befitting the artful divine powers. Eridu, your shadow extends over the midst of the sea, rising sea without a rival, mighty, awe-inspiring river which terrifies the land. Angura, high citadel, standing firm on the earth. So what is this citadel that's standing firm on the earth? The Angura. What does that mean? I mean, besides, help me out here. What's the deeper meaning of that? What's the symbolic meaning of that? Temple at the edge of the Engur, a lion in the midst of the Abzu, lofty temple of Enki, which bestows wisdom on the land. So your cry, like that of a mighty rising river, reaches King Enki. What does that mean? He made the Aja instrument, the bala drum with the drumsticks. Your lyre and alger instrument, the balaj, whatever that is, drum with the drumsticks, the alger instrument, the balaj drum, and even the plectrum, the harhar, the sabatum, and the miritum instruments offer their best for this holy temple, though resounded by themselves with a sweet sound, the holy Aljar, instrument of Enki. What is this instrument of Enki? What does that mean? Played for him, is that some type of like instrument? Okay, sorry, I'm a little bit ignorant. They're like, you idiot Rex, that's an instrument. Everybody knows what that is. I get it. What Enki says is irrefutable, is well established. This is what Isamid spoke to the brick building. He praised the Angura with sweet songs. As it has been built, as Enki has raised Eridu up, it is an artfully built mountain which floats on the water. Ooh, here we go. Here we go. Nanu, nanu, nanu. As it has been built, as it has been built, as Enki has raised Eridu up, it is an artfully built mountain which floats on the water. He built something on the water. His shrine spreads out into the reed beds. Birds brood at night in its green orchards laden with fruit. The sahur carp play among the honey herbs, and the ectop carp dart among the small gizzy reeds. When Enki rises, the fish rise before him like waves. He has the Abzu stand as a marvel as he brings joy into the Engur. Like the sea, he is awe-inspiring. Like a mighty river, he instills fear. The Euphrates rises before him as it does before the fierce south wind. His punting pole is Nara, Mdudu. His oars are the small reeds. When Enki embarks, the year will be full of abundance. The ship departs of its own accord, with tow rope held by itself. As he leaves the temple of Eridu, the river gurgles to its lord. Its sounds as a calf's mooring, the mooring of a good cow. Enki had oxen slaughtered and had sheep offered there lavishly. Where there were no olive drums, he installed some in their places. Where there were no bronze up drums, he dispatched some to their places. He directed his steps on his own to Nibiru and entered the temple terrace. The shrine of Nibiru, Enki reached for, ? The beer. Does it mean like a pale ale? Was it a stout beer? I know, I'm joking, but seriously, why do they leave that question mark there? Were they just not able to translate it? Or, I mean, that's most likely what it is. Or was there something that they just didn't want us to know? Most likely they just weren't able to translate it. But too bad that there's a missing word before the beer. Or you could just say Enki reached for the beer. He reached for the liquor. There's another question mark then, the liquor. So Enki reached for the beer. He reached for the liquor. He had liquor poured into big bronze containers and had emmer wheat beer pressed out in kukuru containers, which make the beer good. He mixed beer mash by adding date syrup to its taste. He made it strong. Its bran mash. In the shrine of Nibiru. So, in the actual shrine of Nibiru. So, what is the actual shrine of Nibiru? If it's inside of it, Enki provided a mill for Enlil in the shrine of Nibiru here. His father, he's seated On at the head of the table and seated Enlil next to On. He seated Nintur in the place of honor and seated the Annunaki gods at the adjacent places. All of them were drinking and enjoying beer and liquor. They filled the bronze agave vessels to the brim and started a competition drinking from the bronze vessels of Uruk, that they made the Tilinda vessels shine like holy barges after beer and liquor had been libated and enjoyed, and after from the house Enlil was made happy in Nibiru. Enlil addressed the Annunaki gods, great gods who are standing here, Annuna, who have lined up in the Upka on Kana. My son, King Enki, has built up the temple. He has made Eridu rise up from the ground like a mountain. He has built in a pleasant place. He has built it in a pleasant place in Eridu, the pure place where no one is to enter, a temple built with silver and decorated with lapis lazuli, a house which tunes the 7 Tiji drums properly and provides incantations where holy songs make all the house a lovely place. The shrine of the Abzu, the good destiny of Enki, befitting the elaborate divine powers, the temple of Eridu, built with silver. For all this, Father Enki be praised. So once again, these guys did a great job. These scholars did an excellent job. I'll leave the links in the video description box. They're in there right now. You can read these yourself. And I think that this one particularly, so far, with the information that I've been able to put together, because like the other day I did a reading where there was 148 different paragraphs that discussed Nibiru in these Sumerian cuneiform tablets, and I read probably at least half of them to you guys. And I couldn't really get a solid established point on if Nibiru was off planet or on planet until someone made a really cool comment and left it in the comment section, because there was this one paragraph that talked about Nibiru, and the only trees that could grow, the trees that grew there would only grow in that area. And I think it was black birch trees or something like that. And these specific trees are actually, they grow in North America. So let's say that Nibiru was a city in North America. And it talks about how it is the highest city. It is the primeval city. It is the city of the gods that decide the fates. It is the city of the gods that decide the fates of what they call the black-headed people in the translations. And if that's where they came from, then that changes history even more so than what a lot of people would typically come to expect. They'd be like, no way, these guys got to be from off planet because of their abilities and the description of the Pleiades, the 7-star cluster, and the images. And that's another thing that I was able to put together pretty easily, and I'm pretty certain on this. And if you can show me evidence otherwise, please do so. The 7-star cluster that's referred to in these Sumerian texts and in the writings of Zechariah Sitchin and others, and for those that try and discredit these texts by discrediting Zechariah Sitchin, you're ignorant in that statement. There's so many comments that people say, oh, this has all been debunked. Go to ZechariahSitchinsAreFraud.com. Well, first of all, I haven't been convinced that all of Zechariah Sitchin's stuff, I haven't had a chance to read his books, but from the information I have from people that I've interviewed that have read his books, other than the Nibiru thing, I mean, what being a 3,600-year cycle of a giant planet that kills the Earth, I mean, I've heard that wipes out a lot of the people on the Earth, I should say. Let me rephrase that. It's getting late. There's been people that said a lot of the stuff that's in these Sumerian scribes and or Sumerian cuneiform tablets that have been translated, I've read people saying that they're accurate and they're resonating with Sitchin stuff, and I've read comments where people have said they don't resonate at all with Sitchin stuff. So which is it? I guess I'm going to have to read the books myself now. That way I can, I'm reading as much as I can and doing as much as I can, but I will have to read these Zechariah Sitchin books, and then that way I can verify in conjunction with these Sumerian translations of the Oxford scholars how much validation there is. So I think that's something that's really important, that needs to be one of the next levels in connecting the dots. So some people say that the star system that the Anunnaki came from, it's a 7-planet system. I think it's a 7-star system. I think they're referencing the Pleiades, the 7 sisters, some of the brightest stars in the heavens, and whether or not they actually flew here on a spaceship, whether or not these texts are referring to these people that, because they were so mighty and powerful and so much more, their DNA had made them larger than other people. Like you read about the Vikings and the Nordics, and you've got people out there that are 7 feet tall, you got people out there that are 6 feet tall, and you got people out there that are 5 feet tall, and everywhere in between. So maybe these people originated from America, and these people survived certain cataclysms, certain catastrophes, and when most people died, whether it had been a flood or something else, and they were able to genetically manipulate people, and they were able to act as gods and demigods and convince people that they were anyway. Maybe their technologies were looked at as off-world, or, for example, you look at some of these carvings in these temples in India that look like ancient astronauts, and then even the Mayans and the Aztecs have these suits where it looks like they're wearing ancient astronaut suits. Could they have came from here? And this is all just a story to convince people and human beings that they're less than they really are, that they're not as powerful as they really are, and that we need to give our power to these deities that are off planet. Or did they really manifest into this existence from another planet and have a different level of consciousness in their eyes, and also be very warlike and, like we've read here in the Sumerian texts? Which is it? Has all of this been manipulated? All of these texts and translations, have they been manipulated by time travel, by manipulating the fabric of time with the CERN type technologies that might be influencing what people refer to as the Mandela effect, which might be something completely different than what we think it is? What is it? Why is it that the Sumerians and these texts that are supposedly at least 7,000 years old, which most likely have been copied from translations of texts that could be 70,000 years old, could be 17,000 years old? How do we really know? Even with carbon dating, with all the inaccuracies, well, I guess you can do the research yourselves, and you can also look at, for example, the Sumerian, what was it called? A planisphere that shows an archaeological time frame of 5,500 years ago approximately, that showed a comet that was most likely what caused the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, whether or not it was a... Okay, let me go back here for a minute. If you read about the rain of fire in the Old Testament, I think it's the Old Testament, right, that talks about Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, this rain of fire could be from that comet exploding, and there's a place in Austria, Kohler, I think, or something with it starts with a K, in Austria, that shows this area where most likely that comet blew up in the atmosphere and caused the rain of fire around the world, also in the Middle East, etc. And it lines up perfectly. There's this recording on this astrolabe planisphere that's over 5,000 years old that shows a very specific, accurate date that can be connected with current technologies. I think similar to the what's that software you can get that is you're able to put in a date and you can look at where the stars are. It's a star chart. Well, there's certain technologies that you can use and type in that date to see if the stars and planets were where this astrolabe, where this planisphere, this ancient planisphere, the Sumerian planisphere says it was, and it's right on the money. So they can verify some type of event over 5,000 years ago. Then you can look at some of these even more incredible structures that are in other places of the world, Machu Picchu and Gobekli, I think is what it is. And there's another temple out there that has recording of a comet strike approximately 10,500 years ago. 10,500 BC, which would actually make it 12,500 years ago, which is making me start to wonder, maybe this cycle isn't 3,600 years. Maybe there's a cycle that's more along the lines of 5,000, 5,500 years, somewhere around that timeline. And then you also want to remember that Sophia is a specific Air Force craft right now that I have been listening to reports about how it is looking for something in a specific proximity with particular infrared technologies and lens camera computer technologies that allow it to, it's scoping for something. And then I want to talk about also, I'm going to connect another dot for you while I'm thinking about this, the JO of 2014 asteroid that is also linked to the rock, and they've known about it since 2014. Here's the kicker. April 17th, it made its closest flyby yet, where it was 1.8 million kilometers away from the Earth. Well, just a week or so ago, it came within 1 million kilometers, according to a local news report that discussed the same asteroid / comet. So with that being said, there was another report that said it wasn't supposed to come back for another, I think, 18 years or something like that. So which is it? Which do you believe? And could that comet actually be something more than a comet? Maybe it's a satellite, maybe it's a UFO, maybe it's something that they don't want us to know about. And I also think that that would connect with the particular influence of why we don't see a whole lot of images of the Earth as a whole, because of all the satellite and space junk out there that could be classified information, classified specifications that they just don't want us to know about, versus a flat Earth hypothesis. That would make more sense to me. And I think there's been enough math to, anyway, we don't need to get into that. But, you know, what if they're hiding a lot of these images and scrubbing out a lot of these images and doing a lot of photoshopping because they don't want us to see what the satellites look like, where they're at? That would make more sense to me. So, what do you guys think about all this? I mean, do you think there's some Do you think there's some validation in these texts that confirm we were manipulated by off-world sources? Or does this confirm, based upon the information that discusses Nibiru and the kind of trees that grow on Nibiru, does this confirm that they were in North America? And what about Antarctica? What was out there 12,000 years ago? What was out there before it froze? What do you guys think? Bueller, Ferris Bueller. Okay. Well, I haven't. There's a little bit of a delay here, so once again, I'm asking you guys. I would like to know what the audience thinks. Do you feel that the Anunnaki came from North America, that Nibiru is North America, or is that what some people say, the hub point, the space station, essentially, the walk-off location, the base, and Nibiru, the original Nibiru, is a planet, because these Sumerian scribes, not scribes, but these Sumerian translations are describing an area. Sometimes you can definitely tell is earthly, but then sometimes, like this one right here, this one, there was a few lines, especially at the beginning, Enki's Journey to Nibiru, that to me could possibly be off-world. And then you get into the hypothesis of, and this was a great discussion I had with Matt LaCroix and Jay Campbell on the Decoders of Truth podcast, and we're actually doing one of those tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Plus, I'm going to have Marshall Masters on. Actually, I should say this morning because of the time that it is. I'm going to have Marshall Masters on, 9 p.m. Central, live. He is going to discuss the Colburn Bible, and he's going to discuss all the information he has because he is one of the leading experts in the information on the Colburn Bible. So I'm going to ask him some difficult questions. I'm going to ask him why there's not more details in some of these prophecies that reference to the actual time itself, like specific names of pharaohs and stuff like that. Maybe it was the translation. Maybe there's something that I'm missing here. Maybe it was just an easier way for the translators to give people that don't read very good, like myself, an opportunity to read it fluidly and understand it better. I mean, those are all possibilities. I get it. But let me go through here through the comment section and see what you guys think about Nibiru. If it is an off-world planet, could it come in and out of dimensions? Could it be like an interdimensional type vessel? Could it actually be just a regular planet, just in a little bit of a different dimension? Kind of like we were discussing earlier today on Leak Project, how the radio channel, the radio station, you can change different stations and you'll get different songs, but you can drive right through those radio waves because it's not physically affecting people at least that much. I mean, you might be real sensitive to that electronic frequency stuff, and I'm sure a little bit it is, but you guys get my point. It's not like a wall that's there that you're going to run into, yet it's still information. It's still data. So maybe these Anunnaki were able to learn how to create some type of Stargate, in essence, some type of intergalactic portal or interdimensional portal that allowed them to go in and out of time zones and maybe take a long sabbatical. Maybe for them, if they want to take a nap that's 2 hours, because the way they can manipulate time, if they can, well, that could be 2,000 years for us. So a 2-hour nap for them, kind of like when you read about stuff in the Bible. You can use those tidbits and pieces and say, well, I read about that in an Egyptian text. I read about that in Sumerian text. I read about that in Greek mythos that predates it, or not, But you can say maybe that would make more sense at that key point or that variable. It's very fascinating to think about these different points of reference. So let's say that these people became so advanced. Let's say they came from Earth and they became so advanced that they literally were able to transfer in and out of time zones, different levels of, different areas. And and here's another thing too that I want to just remind you guys of, and myself. When I was reading through those Sumerian texts, there were some of them that definitely referred to the cosmic events, and you could tell that they were like plays that were mocking, the stars and the planets in the heavens and in the solar system and the galaxies, etc. But then you read about those stories that you can tell are definitely not cosmic events. They're too personal, like when Inanna was sleeping, and then it talks about how one of the earthlings went in to her when she, and then she went and wiped a bunch of people out the next day when she found out about what happened. And that doesn't sound like a cosmic event to me. That sounds like a personal story and a way for somebody to describe something that they saw or heard about or were able to translate. And then we have to remind ourselves that the Sumerians, you guys, here's one thing we have to continue to remind ourselves about. The Sumerians that write about the Annunaki, that write about Enlil and Enki and Inanna and Nananima and Eridu and these different areas and locations and stuff. They took that information from another culture. They didn't just make it up. The Anunnaki, if you want to follow the King's List that goes back 240-something thousand years, and if you want to follow the timeline and find these parts, out-of-place artifacts of these mines that are 250,000 years old, these gold mines that are 250,000 years old in Africa, well, then you might come to the conclusion that some of these stories that are being referenced predate these 7,000-year timestamps by 150,000 years, by 200,000 years. And then you think about that possibility, and sure, you can go beyond Truman's Show type events. I mean, then you realize how people at the very top levels that control these industries and the technologies and the patents, most of these people, unless you're a part of a certain organization or underground network or something, and still most of the time then you're even compartmentalized because this whole planet is so good at being compartmentalized. Well, then you might come to the conclusion to realize that little words, little numbers that end up being big words and big numbers and have big impacts and big meanings have been changed for strategic reasons. And then you can even get into the cult of Saturn, and you can get into the transhuman movement and the destruction of the planet right now as we know it by these industries. And then you might come to the conclusion that there's more substance to these prophecies and these beautiful pieces of antiquity that we have an opportunity to read now, even on the internet, and discuss it through these programs. It's just fascinating to think about the possibilities. And then when you come to the conclusion that what you're discussing is presenting itself in everyday life in a different shade, but obvious at the same time, it becomes even more fascinating. So I think that we need to do maybe one of these days a question and answer type program where you guys can start asking me some good questions, and then I can get your take on things, and we could do kind of a call-in maybe. Maybe I could set up a 1-800 number program where you guys could call in, because I just love listening to the or reading the comments on youtube.com/clandestine time lord, because you guys are just brilliant. And I think this is such a group effort, the way we're coming up with different conclusions, and combined with the trolls and everything else. If you have if you're just having fun, it's all good. But then you get the people out there that are just real nasty, and those are people that we just don't have any time for. And you guys just, goodbye. Go have fun doing something else. If you want to think I'm a government reptilian shapeshifter, 39th degree Jesuit, go right ahead. I'm not. If I was, I'd probably have a little bit of a nicer studio. I'm just saying, I'd probably be in mainstream somewhere. I probably wouldn't be doing this in my garage in a non-air conditioned environment, but hey, maybe I would. Maybe I'm just that good, right? Maybe I'm just that spooky. So probably not. But it's okay. It's okay, because the trolls out there and the psychos out there and all and then you could even get into the real nasties out there. They're just at a different level. They're on a different spectrum, and they're not gonna, when the more we wake up as a collective whole, the more impact it's going to have at them. And maybe those out there that right now don't have much of a chance to wake up, maybe somehow they will. And for their sake and for everybody else's sake, I certainly hope so. And that's one more thing that maybe we could discuss while I'm going here. And Borg. So maybe when you really understand the quantum physics thing and about how, in essence, we're all connected at the quantum level, I don't know, maybe we're not ready for this level yet. Maybe it's a little too soon, but yeah, I think it's too soon right now. But we'll definitely discuss this next one of these days when it's right, and you guys will understand at that time. So, because I don't know enough about it to really get into it in too much detail at this current point. Maybe, here's another thing too with the Hollywood control grid setup that's kind of all interconnected here. Have you guys noticed anything different in just regular everyday life with people you work with people you know, about kind of how they're thinking, about where their mind's going? Have you noticed people are becoming more awake, or are people becoming more entombed into some type of like Borg mindset, where they're just blocked off. They're blocking themselves, they're limiting themselves, they're labeling themselves based on ignorance, not accuracy. Okay, read the text already. All right. Where are we at? Give me a second, guys. I'm just reading this real quick. Okay, what do I think about the archaeology that seems to end up missing? That's a great question. There's certain institutions out there, like the Smithsonian. I didn't say the Smithsonian, but I said like the Smithsonian, in my opinion, that have enough power and influence and people working for them that, they've got archaeologists all over the world, right, that are in hot spots. And these guys, once they find something, they need to give that information to their peers, to their superiors. Well, then they take it all, to the top, and whoever's funding that is going to decide where that information goes, if people are ready for it, and what type of spin they want to put on that artifact or out of place artifact. That's one thing about Bigfoot. Let's talk about Bigfoot for a minute while we're at it here. Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, the Yeti. If there is a Bigfoot, well, I'm sure there's multiple Bigfoots, but if Bigfoots exist, I've heard from people on the inside that if you start talking about it, like if you see a Bigfoot, if you have a picture of a Bigfoot, if you have any physical evidence and you start presenting it to the masses, well, to anybody, it's gone. It disappears, or you might even disappear. So whether or not, I can't prove that. I've interviewed people on the Leak Project that say they telepathically talk to dozens of Sasquatches and Yetis and stuff like that. I can't verify that. Maybe they do. But, so that's a great question about that. Now, what does that mean? That means that these institutions that get these artifacts and bring them in, then they hide them and suppress them, and then that continues to sculpt the different industries like the education industry and other philosophies and ideals and religions, and that way they all kind of work together. So if they find something out of place that's going to destroy religions, well, there you go. They suppress it, and then religions continue to maintain, and that specific paradigm lives prosperously. So, okay. Let me see what else we got here. What else we got, guys? Okay, I'm not seeing a whole lot of other questions here, so why don't we do this? Maybe if you guys have some questions that you want to ask me, what I can do is tomorrow I can come on here sometime before the Marshall Masters interview, and we can hit a few topics to discuss. Like another thing that we might want to do here is if there's maybe 10, 15 topics you guys want to discuss or 10, 15 questions, we can bring it up at the beginning of the show, and then throughout the podcast I can discuss it with you guys. I do not know anything about the Ziggurat of Eridu. How do we leave the prison farm? I don't know. How do we leave the prison farm? I didn't know we were in one. Are you referring to this planet? Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to have an out-of-body experience? Hey, I mean, if you want to astral project, I can recommend an awesome book to practice the exercises. It's worked for me beautifully. Should I share that little gem with you? Should I share the secrets of how to have an out-of-body experience, how to actually astral project? Do I believe in Lord Krishna? I don't know enough about Lord Krishna to give you a valid answer to that. Do I believe that Lord Krishna existed? Possibly. I haven't done enough research into that. The difference between Enlil and Enki? Okay. Well, the readings that I've done thus far on Enlil and Enki seemed to have more compassion than Enlil, and Enlil seemed to be of a higher stature, a higher position in the hierarchy, I guess you could say. And there's been two different people that have gone to the netherworld that Enki helped bail out, and both times Enlil said no. The first time was with Inanna, and the second time was with, just read this, not Gilgamesh, but it was somebody that I can't remember. You'll have to go back and listen to it. I did it just a few days ago. YouTube.com/clandestine Time Lord. Now, with that said, the netherworld, here's where I think they got the story of, don't be upset with me, guys. Or if you're upset with me, I'm sure you'll get over it. This is my theory. I can't confirm this. And I'm not saying that this is the actual Christ. Inanna goes to the underworld, to the netherworld, for 3 days and 3 nights. Inanna is Isis, is Ishtar. Jesus goes to hell for 3 days and 3 nights. And even in the Gnostic text, it talks about how Jesus goes to the underworld. And there's different names, there's different points of reference, there's different characters, there's different players, yet one thing is the same, and that is the 3-day, 3-night underworld, aka hell reference. So, is Jesus, that's referred to in the Bible anyway, that you have access to, is that Isis and Inanna? And you can read the 7,000-year-old translation that is most likely a copy of a translation at least 7,000 years older than that. And then it shatters your paradigm even more when you are a devout Christian that follows only the King James Bible, and at the same time you think Freemasons are evil, and then you find out that King James was a Freemason. Then that's kind of a paradigm-shattering event where some people can't even look at and fathom. Now, you guys know I don't care if somebody's a Freemason. I have friends that are Freemasons. I mean, I've had family members from previous generations that were Freemasons. I don't care. I'm not a Freemason, but I don't care if you are. I mean, I know that they're obviously a lot of them are extremely intelligent. They're very good architects, and almost every president has been a Freemason. So it sounds to me like there's some perks that go along with it, right? Now, does that mean that every Freemason is evil? No, absolutely not. I brought this up the other day. There are bad apples in just about every area of growth. So there's good and bad apples everywhere. Doesn't mean they're all bad, doesn't mean they're all good. And I'm sure you guys would agree with that. So I don't care that King James is a Freemason and he didn't write, but he translated these scribes into the Holy Bible. I could care less about that. He was probably better educated than most people at that time, and that's how he was able to do so. I've also heard other people were involved, like Mr. Bacon and others involved with the translation of it, and that's fine. Now, the thing that I find fascinating is just when you reference these ancient texts that predate the Bible by 5,000 years or more, that have the same stories with just different names, different players, but it just seems as if it all connects to the same source. So, with that said, let me pull up the, I'm going to get that book that I was just referring to. I'm telling you, I need to get a deal with these people, these authors that I promote their work. I might make a couple bucks on Leak Project. That'd be cool. So this is Mastering Astral Projection, a 90-day guide to out-of-body experience. And it worked for me. And I've told you about the previous experiences I had when I just did it naturally, and it freaked me out because at that time I was still stuck in the Christian paradigm. And once I broke out of that, it was a lot easier for me to accept these mental abilities that I was born with. I mean, I think about different things that I suppressed in my life because I didn't know what it was, like just different mental abilities. Like when I would see things before they would happen. I'll give you guys an example. I remember, well, I mean, this wasn't even that long ago. This was probably a couple years ago. It's 2-3 years ago. I was driving and my radar detector went off, but it didn't go off. And it was bizarre. So my radar detector, when it goes off, it turns red. Okay. At that time, the radar detector that I had was an Escort, 8500 or something like that. It was one of the higher end ones. And it would turn red when, that the colors would be red. And this time it was like something out of a movie. It just, all of a sudden I got this quick blip of my radar detector going off, but it went off in like a different color. And it wasn't even a color. It was like black and white. The whole vision was black and white. And literally less than 30 seconds, probably less than 15 seconds, the radar detector goes off. And it went off normally. And there's been times before like where I've seen something in my mind that's happened before it did. I mean, that's one of many. That's just the first one that came to mind to think about. I remember one time, no, I'm not going to share that with you guys. You guys think it's too far out. But anyway, so Mastering Astral Projection, 90-day guide, definitely pick it up. And another thing too, you guys, when my radar detector goes off, and when that one would go off, it would make a noise. It would go, and it didn't make a noise that time either. And it was just really bizarre because it wasn't a faulty radar detector. It wasn't like it just had a fault and it didn't have any sound and it had a completely different color. The entire vision, like the entire thing, was different. It was in a different perspective. It was a different color. It was more holographic, and yet it was as real as it gets. So you guys have probably had experiences like that before, or encounters where something you saw was going to happen before it did. And I think once we really tap into that, it's fascinating. And I don't think we need to feel that we as human beings are inferior to any being out there, to any entity or to any force, because we all have a connection point to source. We all have an opportunity to be as high as the heavens or inside the roots, inside the earth, whatever you guys want. Do you want to be a part of the elemental kingdom? Do you want to be a part of the animal kingdom? Do you want to be a part of the human kingdom? I mean, what do you want and where do you want to go? Well, that's your opportunity. That's your destiny. And good luck. I hope it works for you. So thank you everybody for joining me. And I would also like to recommend you support our sponsors. If you're looking for really good health products, really good supplements, really good detox products, or stuff that's good for digestive health, etc., check out getthetea.com. This stuff is the best of the best in health supplements. Also, check out terravivos.com if you're interested in purchasing a bunker or off-grid survival shelter, and become a premium member at leakproject.com. $10 a month, $50 a year. Thank you, everybody, for being here with me. Have a beautiful day. Be excellent to each other, and be the change you want to see. A lion in the midst of the Abzu lofty temple of Enki, which bestows wisdom on the land, your cry, like that of a mighty risen river, reaches King Enki. He made the Alajar instrument. Now let me take a time out here. And how's the sound coming in? Is everything going in okay right now? I want to make sure that we're not having any technical issues. We doing good? Can somebody just give me a quick yes? We're on the All right. Well, okay. Thanks, guys. So, Enki's beloved. No, here we go. Abzu, pure place which fulfills its purpose. And Gura, your Lord, has directed his steps towards you. Enki, Lord of the Abzu, has embellished your foundation pegs with cornelian. He has adorned you with lapis lazuli. Abzu, pure place where the fates are determined. The Lord of wisdom, Lord Enki, the Lord who determines the fates. Nudimmud, the Lord of Eridu, lets nobody look into its mist. Your Abgal priests let their hair down their backs. So what is the midst? Why can't they look into the midst? What's the deal with that? Why is that off limits? Enki's beloved Eridu, and Gura, whose inside is full of abundance. Abzu, life of the land, beloved of Enki, temple built on the edge, befitting the artful divine powers. Eridu, your shadow extends over the A Nibiru. Enki's journey to Nibiru. Now, this is a different translation. I read another translation of Enki's journey to Nibiru a few weeks ago, and here's something that I missed, and this is a different translation. This is from Sumerian cuneiform tablets, and I'm going to go ahead and read this to you guys. I want to get your opinion on this specific. Okay, here we go. We got Cody on here again. Let's block this douchebag. Okay, here we go. See you later, dude. In those remote days, when the fates were determined, and a year went on, brought about abundance, and people broke through the earth like green plants. So, people broke through the earth like green plants. Then the Lord of the Abzu, which is like a location of holy water, which is considered extremely mystical and majestic and considered sacred. Nibiru is the only reference to a location that I have found that's considered higher than the Abzu thus far. So, being into the shrine of the Abzu, he brought joy. Now you know what the Abzu is. It's the location of holy water, the sanctuary. And, okay, so now we get into an artfully made. Where are we at here? Okay, here we go. Enki, Lord of the Abzu, has embellished your foundation pegs with cornelian. He has adorned you with lapis lazuli. The temple of Enki is provisioned the holy wax. It is a bull obedient to its master, roaring by itself and giving advice at the same time. And Gura, which Enki has surrounded with a holy reed fence in your midst. A lofty throne is erected. Your door jamb is the holy locking bar of heaven. Abzu, pure place where the fates are determined. The Lord of wisdom, Lord Enki, the Lord who determines the fates. Nudimmud, the Lord of Eridu, lets nobody look into the mist. Your Abgal priests let their hair down. I'm getting a phone call. Your Abgal priests let their hair down their backs. Enki's beloved Eridu, and Gura, whose inside is full of abundance. Abzu, life of the land, beloved of Enki, temple built on the edge, befitting the artful divine powers. Eridu, your shadow extends over the midst of the sea, rising sea without a rival, mighty, awe-inspiring river which terrifies the land. And Gura, high citadel, standing firm on the earth, temple at the edge of the Nguru. Oxford scholars translate ancient Sumerian Scribe and confirm the Annunaki and Nibiru. This predates the Bible. I'm going to do a live reading with you guys and discuss this translation. It is an excellent translation, in my opinion, from these Oxford scholars, various Oxford scholars, and I would like to go ahead right now and give a shout out, to the credits here. Right here, if you go to this specific website, you can look at the project members. You can read about the the scholars, and you can even get into Sumerian / Annunaki translations yourself. So if you want to verify the Zechariah Sitchin, if you want to verify, people that have written or talked about the Annunaki, the Sumerians, this is a good start. Now, is anything 100% accurate? Not that I know of. Is it pretty darn accurate? Most likely. And here's what I find fascinating is I have been doing so much research into Nibiru. And I've been trying to find out how legit it is. And these Sumerian scribes that are ancient, they're well over 7,000 years old. So it predates what's in the Bible, predates the Gnostic texts, predates even the stuff that's in the Book of the Dead, if you believe the story about how these ancient hieroglyphics are only approximately 5,500 years old. So with that said, it's called Enkis' Journey to Nibiru, aka bright crenellation rising out from the Abzu, was erected for Lord Nudimmud. He built the temple from precious metal, decorated it with lapis lazuli, and covered it abundantly with gold. In Eridu, he built the house on the bank. Its brickwork makes utterances and gives advice. Its eaves roar like a bull. The temple of Enki bellows. During the night, the temple praises its Lord and offers its best for him. Now, before Lord Enki, Izamud, the minister, praises the temple. He goes to the temple and speaks to it. He goes to the brick building and addresses it. Temple, built from precious metal and lapis lazuli, whose foundation pegs are driven into the Abzur, which has been cared for by the prince in the Abzul. Like the Tigris and the Euphrates, it is mighty and awe-inspiring. Joy has been brought into Enkis' Abzu. Your lock has no rival. Your bolt is a fearsome lion. Your roof beams are the bull of heaven and artfully made bright headgear. Your reed mats are like lapis lazuli, decorating the roof beams. Your vault is a bull raising its horns. Your door is a lion who is awe-inspiring. Your stairway is a lion coming down on a man. Abzu, pure place, which fulfills its purpose. And Gura, your Lord has directed its steps towards you.